At first glance, most seniors over 60 seem to be doing just fine. Walking their dogs, chatting over coffee, attending church on Sundays. But beneath this surface of routine and smiles lies a quiet epidemic. 95% of older adults are living with at least one chronic disease. Diabetes, hypertension, arthritis, heart disease. These aren't just medical terms. They're daily realities for millions of elderly people across Europe and North America. What's even more alarming, many seniors don't even realize how deeply these conditions are affecting their bodies and minds. They adjust, they cope, they downplay. But behind closed doors, life becomes a constant negotiation, with medications, symptoms, and fatigue. In this video from Elderly Reflections, we'll uncover the full story, how these chronic illnesses creep in, what real seniors have said about the emotional and physical toll, and how their quiet resilience still shines through. Backed by research and the powerful voices of lived experience, this is a story of struggle, strength, and survival. Because the real question isn't just who has a disease, it's what happens next. Don't forget to subscribe to Elderly Reflections for weekly inspiration, senior health tips, and timeless life lessons from the elderly. When we think of someone in their golden years, we often picture peace, perhaps a cozy morning with a newspaper and a warm cup of tea. Yet for millions of seniors across Europe and North America, this tranquil image hides a difficult truth. Chronic illness is not the exception but the norm. According to the CDC and WHO, 95% of adults over 60 have at least one chronic condition, and more than 75% live with two or more. This silent epidemic has become one of the most significant health challenges of the 21st century. And yet, it rarely makes headlines. Unlike acute diseases, chronic illnesses creep in quietly. They build slowly over time, often masked by what many seniors and even their families consider normal aging. But behind those small signs, tiredness, joint aches, forgetfulness, may lie serious, progressive conditions that rob the elderly of their independence, vitality, and in many cases, their dignity. Let's begin by exploring 5 of the most common and underestimated indicators of chronic illness in seniors. Each one will be illustrated with a true or representative story of a senior living in the West, whose experience sheds light on the invisible battles fought behind closed doors. These stories are more than antidotes. They represent a growing demographic whose health risks we can no longer afford to ignore. Eleanor's story begins with something most of us ignore: fatigue that turned out to be far more than just getting older. Fatigue is often brushed off with a chuckle and the phrase, "That's just part of getting old." But persistent fatigue, especially when it disrupts everyday activities, is a clear red flag that something deeper may be happening inside the body. Take the case of Eleanor, 71, a retired librarian living in Ontario, Canada. She had always enjoyed her daily walks around the lake, but one summer afternoon she had to sit down after just 5 minutes. "I thought I was just out of shape," she recalled, smiling faintly, "but it turned out my heart was barely managing." Her diagnosis, congestive heart failure. It had developed slowly over several years, with only subtle symptoms. Eleanor didn't notice until she couldn't walk across her living room without getting winded. Fatigue in seniors is often linked to conditions like heart disease, chronic kidney disease, thyroid disorders, and even undiagnosed anemia. And yet, because seniors are conditioned to expect some physical decline, they often normalize their symptoms. A dangerous mistake. According to research by the National Institute on Aging, persistent fatigue in older adults is also a predictor of hospitalization, mobility decline, and even mortality. It's not merely tiredness, it's the body waving a quiet distress flag. For Mr. Thomas, unexpected weight loss seemed like a blessing, until it revealed a dangerous hidden condition. In a culture obsessed with thinness, weight loss is often seen as something positive. But for seniors, unintentional weight loss is rarely a good sign. Mr. Thomas, 68, who lived just outside Des Moines, Iowa, had been trying to lose a few pounds on and off for years. So when the weight started coming off without much effort, he was thrilled. "I thought my metabolism had finally woken up," he joked. "Then I started getting dizzy and my legs felt like jelly." A few months later, he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, which had gone undetected for years. The weight loss was the result of his body's inability to regulate insulin, which eventually led to neuropathy in his feet. Weight loss can also signal cancer, gastrointestinal disorders, or depression. In seniors, the body's muscle mass naturally decreases with age, but rapid decline can mean the difference between independence and frailty. Dietary interventions, resistance training, and early medical screening can all help prevent the most dangerous outcomes. but only if someone notices the signs. What Helen thought were simple senior moments became the early warning signs of a deeper cognitive struggle. We all misplace our keys or forget a name, but when those lapses become frequent and affect daily life, they may signal the early stages of mild cognitive impairment or even Alzheimer's disease. Helen, a 76-year-old retired painter from Manchester, UK, first noticed something was wrong when she forgot her granddaughter's birthday. "That day crushed me," she said quietly. "I never forget my family's birthdays. Never." Her daughter convinced her to see a neurologist. The test showed early-stage Alzheimer's, and while the diagnosis was devastating, it also gave Helen and her family a chance to plan. Too often, memory issues are dismissed as senior moments. But according to Alzheimer's Research UK, 1 in 14 people over 65 has dementia, and early symptoms often go unnoticed for years. Catching these signs early opens doors to medication, therapy, and community support. Most importantly, it allows seniors to make informed decisions about their future while they still can. Walter's quiet suffering with knee pain reveals how untreated chronic pain can dramatically shrink a senior's world. Arthritis, back pain, hip pain, these aren't just inconveniences. When chronic pain goes untreated, it can shrink a senior's world dramatically. Walter, an 80-year-old veteran from Texas, had always prided himself on being tough. His knees had ached for years, but he toughed it out. By the time his daughter intervened, he was using a walker and avoiding stairs altogether. He didn't want to seem weak, she explained, but he lost his strength anyway because he stopped moving. Chronic pain is a leading cause of disability among seniors. It limits mobility, contributes to depression, and increases fall risk. Many older adults stop walking or exercising altogether, believing they're protecting themselves. In truth, they're accelerating decline. Modern pain management doesn't have to rely on opioids or invasive surgeries. Physical therapy, anti-inflammatory diets, gentle exercise, and even mindfulness practices can dramatically improve quality of life, but only if the pain is acknowledged. Raymond's silence after loss shows how emotional health in seniors is often misunderstood and dangerously ignored. Mental health in older adults is perhaps the most underestimated chronic condition. Depression and anxiety don't always look the same in seniors. They often appear as irritability, loss of appetites, sleep disturbances, or disinterest in life. Raymond, 79, lost his wife to cancer and slowly began to withdraw. He skipped meals, stopped tending his garden, and ignored his phone. His son thought it was just grief, but grief turned into major depressive disorder. Combined with Raymond's diabetes, the emotional toll made his physical condition worse. He stopped taking medications regularly, lost weight, and became dehydrated. The World Health Organization estimates that 15% of adults over 60 suffer from a mental disorder. Yet most go undiagnosed. The stigma around mental illness, especially in older generations, prevents many from seeking help. Support groups, therapy, antidepressants, and community programs all have a role to play. But first, families need to recognize that emotional pain is real pain. As we look closer, we begin to see that these chronic illnesses don't exist in isolation. They form a growing web of complexity that intertwines one condition with another. One illness often leads to another. Seniors with arthritis are more likely to be depressed. Those with diabetes may suffer cognitive decline. Heart disease can worsen kidney function. It's rarely just one thing. This interconnectedness of conditions, known as multimorbidity, makes treatment more complicated. Seniors may see multiple specialists, take over a dozen medications, and still feel worse. Polypharmacy, or the use of 5 or more medications, is common among the elderly and increases the risk of drug interactions, falls, confusion, and hospitalization. And yet, despite these risks, many seniors hesitate to seek help. Some fear becoming dependent, others don't trust the system. Many simply think this is just how aging works. But it doesn't have to be, and it shouldn't be. In the next part of this video, we'll explore the emotional and financial costs of chronic disease in seniors, the social stigma surrounding dependency, and the silent loneliness many carry despite living among others. Stay with us, because this journey into elderly reflections isn't about fear, it's about understanding, respect, and change. Chronic illness doesn't just affect the body. It reshapes a person's sense of worth, drains savings, and often leaves seniors feeling more alone than ever. In this second part of our journey, we'll examine how health conditions quietly erode more than just physical strength. From emotional burden to financial pressure to the heavy silence of isolation, Chronic diseases often come with costs we can't see on a medical chart. Margaret's quiet grief after her stroke reveals a painful truth. Chronic illness in older adults often steals more than physical ability. It silently dismantles identity, belonging, and the emotional foundations that keep people whole. For many seniors, emotional suffering becomes the most overlooked part of their health journey, yet it cuts just as deep as any wound. After her stroke, Margaret, 74, described a sadness deeper than physical pain. "It wasn't just that I couldn't use my left hand anymore," she explained. "It was the way people looked at me, like I was someone else." Her experience echoes that of millions across Europe and North America, where aging with illness brings with it a profound psychological toll. They grieve not just the practical inconveniences, but the vanishing pieces of selfhood, being seen as capable, admired, or needed. The fear of becoming irrelevant often outweighs even the fear of death. According to the American Psychological Association, chronic illness increases the risk of depression twofold in older adults. Yet emotional suffering is often sidelined in conversations about treatment. While medical appointments focus on blood pressure and lab results, few ask, "How are you feeling?" Truly, the result is a quiet army of elderly individuals carrying invisible wounds, much decision even by loved ones. Many feel guilty for being a burden or ashamed to talk about sadness. Some withdraw entirely, convinced no one can understand their loss, not just of ability, but of identity. This silence deepens suffering and leads to what researchers call emotional frailty, where mental and emotional fatigue combine with physical decline to accelerate aging. James's story of watching his savings vanish highlights an uncomfortable reality. Staying alive with chronic disease often comes at a cost that drains not just money, but also hope and security. Across countries and systems, seniors face a hidden economy of survival, one that rarely considers dignity. The idea of aging in place sounds ideal, but few discuss the cost of achieving that with failing health. In the United States, older adults with multiple chronic conditions spend up to $9,000 annually out of pocket, according to AARP. Even in countries with subsidized healthcare like the UK or Germany, costs accumulate from transport to appointments to home modifications and caregiving. Monthly co-pays, specialist consultations, mobility aids, and part-time help at home quietly chip away at savings meant for leisure or legacy. James, 77, lives in New Jersey and takes 8 prescriptions a day for diabetes, heart failure, and arthritis. "I worked my whole life," he said, "but my savings are vanishing, one pill bottle at a time." His sentiment is echoed by many who never imagined retirement as a ledger of expenses. James even considered stopping some medications just to save for property taxes. Many seniors like James must choose between essential needs, food or meds, rent or a doctor visit, some delay or skip care entirely to avoid costs, which often results in worsened conditions and emergency interventions. Even family members aren't immune to the strain. In North America, unpaid caregiving is valued at over $470 billion annually. Adult children reduce work hours to quit jobs to care for aging parents, sometimes putting their own futures at risk. This financial ripple effect is one of the quietest crises of chronic illness. It alters inheritance plans, relocates family units, and breeds tension among siblings unsure how to divide care and costs. What's most heartbreaking is how this burden is often borne silently, in guilt and duty, without external support. Sophia's resistance to help after her injury sheds light on a broader cultural wound, one where asking for assistance feels like admitting defeat. For many seniors, the moment they accept help becomes the moment they feel invisible, as though they've crossed from person to patient, from capable to forgotten. Few things scare older adults more than losing independence. To them, dependency can feel like erasure, a loss of privacy, pride, and control. That's why many resist assistive devices, refuse to move in with family, or avoid talking about limitations. This reluctance is not stubbornness, it's a last stand for dignity. Take Sofia, 82, in Barcelona. After a hip fracture, her daughters offered to renovate her home and hire a part-time nurse, but she refused. "If I say yes," she told them, "I stop being me." Her response illustrates how aging is not just biological, it's deeply psychological. It's deeply psychological. It says, "I can't do this alone anymore." And in a world that praises self-reliance, that feels like failure. The stigma around needing help is fueled by a culture that equates aging with decline instead of experience. Many seniors fear they'll be pitied, micromanaged, or forgotten once they admit they're struggling. But this resistance often leads to avoidable accidents, burnout among caregivers, and delayed medical attention. Changing this mindset requires redefining independence, not as doing everything alone, but as making choices about how to receive support. Aging with dignity isn't about never needing help. It's about being allowed to ask for it without shame. It's about offering care in ways that preserve agency rather than replacing it. It's about listening before intervening, because behind every reluctant senior is someone still fighting to be respected. Glenn's quiet retreat from his community shows how chronic illness creates emotional borders few dare to cross. Even in rooms full of people, seniors can feel profoundly alone when no one truly sees the struggle behind their steady smile. You don't have to live alone to feel alone. That's one of the cruelest truths about chronic illness. It can isolate even those with large families or vibrant communities. Why? Because pain, fatigue, or limited mobility makes socializing difficult. Activities that once brought joy. After his Parkinson's diagnosis, Glenn, 69, stopped attending his weekly church group in Ohio. It wasn't that they weren't kind, he said. I just felt like I didn't belong anymore. His story illustrates what many researchers have begun calling the loneliness epidemic. According to Harvard Health, social isolation increases the risk of heart disease, dementia, and early death by up to 50%.
Seniors who live with chronic illness are especially at risk.
Not only because they stay home more, but because others don't know how to talk to them about what they're going through. This loneliness is not always visible. Some seniors post cheerful pictures, wave to neighbors, and seem fine, but inside they may be battling deep emotional despair. The elderly wisdom they carry becomes muted, not because it's gone, but because no one asks. Silence grows thick, not from lack of stories, but from lack of invitations to share. Families often mean well, but struggle to create space for honest conversation. How are you feeling becomes, take your meds. Mildred's passion for storytelling reminds us that even when the body bends and memory fades, purpose remains. Seniors may live with illness, but their insights, memories, and wisdom don't lose value. They become more precious, more necessary, and more. Chronic illness may limit the body, but it doesn't erase wisdom, humor, or the desire to contribute. They want to feel needed, not managed. Mildred, 85, teaches memoir writing at a senior center in Oregon. Despite her osteoporosis and hearing loss, she hasn't missed a session in 4 years. Every wrinkle is a chapter, she said. If people listened, they'd learn more than from a textbook. This is the power of elderly reflections. Not just stories of pain, but stories of strength. Older adults still want to motivate, share inspiration, and leave behind quotes and lessons that others can live by. They are not just survivors of disease, they are witnesses to life. And if we truly value their presence, we must be willing to listen, not just to their symptoms, but to their souls. In the final part, we'll explore the hope, how seniors can improve quality of life, build support systems, and make room for meaning, even in the face of illness. Because chronic disease may be part of aging, but suffering in silence doesn't have to be. If the early reflections in our journey uncovered the physical realities of chronic illness, and the deeper insights revealed the emotional and financial toll, then what follows is the rediscovery of hope. Because even amid pain, the elderly often become our greatest teachers, not through resistance to illness, but in how they rise with it, adapt, and continue living with intention. Let's now journey through how real seniors have transformed limitation into growth, found healing in small places, and created lasting meaning. These stories aren't exceptions. They are pathways available to many if only we learn to listen. Henrik's return to storytelling through shaky hands shows how small daily rituals can reignite a sense of purpose and identity after illness. Purpose doesn't always arrive in grand gestures. Sometimes it returns in the form of small rituals. Feeding a bird every morning, watering the garden, or calling a friend at the same time every Friday. For many seniors, these acts become lifelines. In Stockholm, 81-year-old Henrik began journaling again after a 12-year break. Once a novelist, arthritis in his fingers ended his professional writing. But after a visit from his grandson, who asked to hear a story with pirates, Henry began handwriting 1 page a day. "My hands shake," he said, "but the story still wants to come out." These daily pages became more than a habit. They gave Henry structure, hope, and a renewed identity as a storyteller. According to the gerontologist, seniors with structured daily rituals show better mood, cognitive function, and even sleep quality than those without. When we help elderly individuals reignite their natural rhythms, even small ones, we help restore mental health. Lucille's journey from silence to storytelling. illustrates how sharing and connecting with others can become a healing force for the aging soul. Isolation magnifies illness, but when seniors are encouraged to share their wisdom and connect with others, their health outcomes can improve dramatically. Lucille, 77, runs a tea and circle every Wednesday in her Miami retirement home. After years of silent depression, a social worker invited her to lead a group for newer residents. "I didn't think anyone would come," Lucille said. "But the stories brought us all back to life." Studies from the National Institute on Aging confirm that group participation, even as simple as storytelling, can reduce loneliness, inflammation, and improve long-term emotional resilience. When seniors feel useful, not just comforted, they begin to heal. Gerald's commitment to small, consistent movement shows that even simple adaptations can help seniors reclaim their strength and self-worth. While chronic disease imposes limits, smart adaptations can restore confidence. Exercise doesn't have to be high impact. Nutrition doesn't have to be complicated. What matters is creating sustainable habits. Gerald, 70, from Glasgow, had COPD and couldn't walk more than 50 meters without breathlessness. But with the help of his physiotherapist, he created a plan. 5 minutes of chair yoga every morning, a walk with a rollator by evening, and a food journal to track energy levels. "I never thought of myself as an athlete," he laughed, "but I've got a new respect for breathing." Empowering seniors to take control, even in small ways, improves their sense of agency. According to the British Medical Journal, low-intensity movement paired with peer encouragement reduces falls and increases medication adherence by up to 30% in elderly groups. Maya's virtual book club across continents proves that with a little help, technology can bridge isolation and rekindle a sense of belonging. Contrary to the stereotype, many older adults are embracing digital tools, not just for entertainment, but for reconnection. Video calls, online classes, even virtual choir rehearsals are restoring lost bonds. Maya, 84, a retired teacher in Toronto, was deeply isolated after moving to an assisted living facility. Her grandson set up a tablet for weekly Zoom book club sessions. Now Maya discusses Tolstoy with people from 4 countries. "We're all a little wrinkled and opinionated," she jokes, "but we read with fire." Technology isn't just for the young. When customized and patiently introduced, it becomes a bridge between generations, a source of joy, and a reminder that voices deserve to be heard, regardless of age. Robert's quiet mornings of meditation reveal how spiritual grounding offers seniors a way to find peace amid illness and uncertainty. Many seniors turn to spiritual traditions, not necessarily religious, for comfort, perspective, and healing. Whether it's meditation, prayer, gratitude journaling, or mindful walking, these rituals create inner space in the face of outer limitation. Robert, 86, from Dublin, began meditating after his cancer diagnosis. "I thought it was silly," he admitted. "Then I sat quietly every morning. Now I don't just face the day, I welcome it." Spirituality and aging isn't about conversion. It's about meaning-making. According to Psychology and Aging, seniors with daily contemplative practices report less pain, lower blood pressure, and a stronger sense of peace. These practices become anchors, small harbors of strength in bodies that may no longer cooperate. Dorothy's recorded life advice captures how seniors can shape legacy, not through wealth, but through stories that echo across generations. Above all, seniors need to know their lives mattered, not in eulogies, but in their own words, while still alive. Legacy doesn't have to be financial. It can be a handwritten cookbook, a recorded story, a quilt of family photos. Dorothy, 90, in Kansas, began recording life advice into voice notes after her great-granddaughter was born. Her favorite quote: "Never pour the coffee before you've asked how the other person slept." In a world obsessed with youth, these tiny acts are revolutionary. They remind us that aging is not a vanishing but a deepening. They give our elders a way to close the loop, to pass on not just memory but soul. In closing, this journey through the lives of seniors living with chronic illness is not about finding miracle cures. It's about uncovering real hope, quiet strength, and deep meaning. From stories of resilience to the simple routines that restore joy, these lessons reflect what we call elderly wisdom. They are lived truths that deserve to be heard and shared. To those young loving aging, whether for yourself or someone you love, know that healing doesn't always mean curing. Sometimes it simply means being seen, supported, and valued. Sometimes it means starting again with gentleness and grace. Thank you for spending time with us at Elderly Reflections. If this story touched you, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and hit subscribe to stay connected to more stories like these. We'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from today?